Welcome to Behind the Point. I'm Pastor Jeff. I'm here with Pastor Josue.
Good morning.
And we had a great weekend. We had a nice service yesterday. Alexis Munoz was with us, one of our missionaries in Cambodia.
From Cambodia.
And unfortunately, it was Pastor Scott's last Sunday with us.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to spend just a couple minutes at our start here and just say a few things about Scott. If you have some of your favorite things about him, a favorite memory.
Yeah. Scott is a lot of fun. He does a really good job. He is super witty. Any conversations you have with him, he automatically throws in like little witty comments, and he's just really funny. He's got a great sense of humor. Just on a very personal level, I remember we went to the Thrive conference earlier this year. Even on the drives out there, like he was just funny. Everything about his personality, he's always cracking jokes and just a great personality to be around. He's really fun. He's really loving and caring. But even as a Christian, as a pastor, as a brother in Christ, he is. And in fact, you saw his wife do a little bit of this yesterday at the 8:00 service. If you were there, they are the most evangelistic people I think I know. They're every opportunity they can, they will present the gospel, and they can do it both of them. I say both of them because they both do. They can do it in such a flawless and seamless way where they will bring the gospel right into any conversation. And if you don't know Christ, they got no problem. Just, hey, let's talk. And they've mastered it. I really do believe they have the gift of evangelism. I'm convinced of it. And I'm really sorry to see them go. But it's been a privilege to have him on staff. It's been an honor to have him on staff, to work side by side with him, to have his wisdom, to have a lot of the experience that he has been. Scott's worked at multiple churches, and he has brought so much to that, to each one of those campuses. But it was a privilege to have him here. Today is officially his last day. He's over in the office right now, probably eating bagels. But it was just such a great privilege to have him here, and I'm certainly going to miss him.
Yeah, I would echo all that. Yeah, he's really funny. And one of the things about the gospel, too, I just emphasize, he's so clear in how he communicates it. Yeah. And so that's something I think we've hopefully learned from, that we want to pick up, and his heart for evangelism, and Pam's as well. Yeah. I always just remember he would always pray for me before I preach and stuff. Yeah. And so I'm going to miss him. It was a comfort having him here. Yeah. And I think it was kind of a spiritual dad in a sense that for a lot of people. And so I think I told him, I wrote in a card, almost like Elisha asked for a double dose of wisdom or a double dose of the spirit of Elijah. Yeah. Almost crave that for us in a sense, for that God would give us, and our staff who are here on that anointing to be able to carry on. I think a big part of the church is going with Scott. So
we'll miss him.
We'll miss him.
Sure. Yeah.
He's a good guy. So we are continuing in our series, No Other Gospel, second to last week. The last couple, you're focusing on the person of Jesus.
Correct.
And so yesterday,
yesterday was the person of Jesus.
The person of Christ. And then next week is
the work of Christ.
The work of Christ.
Right.
Okay. So yesterday was the person of Christ. And your first point was that the Jesus of progressive Christianity is not the Jesus of the Bible, because our Jesus is more than a man.
Correct.
So progressive Christianity, many of them would just say he's just a person. He was a human being, and that's it. So he's not divine. I like how you said, if we don't understand who Christ really is, we can't truly follow him at all, because he's God. He's holy of holies. You mentioned how the angels bow down and worship him. And so he's more than a man. This is kind of a tricky concept, I think a lot of people wrestle with. How can Jesus be fully God and fully man? And I don't know if you can fully answer that, but how can that be? And more importantly, though, what are some of the important aspects of both? Jesus the man, Jesus God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the theological term is called a hypostatic union. If you were to say that the full divinity of God and the full humanity of this human that was born of Mary, that these two would exist simultaneously, completely, wholly within Christ. That's what it's called. That's just what it is. And this is what Paul describes as being equal with God, yet humbling himself to a man. So he still had the full divinity. He was fully God within Christ, but he was also still fully man. Some theologians would argue that though he was God, still fully God and fully human, the will of God was still over the will of the human.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we saw ultimately God's will play out.
Yeah.
It wasn't the will of man.
It wasn't his, because he was, as a man, he experienced all the discomforts,
Exactly.
the temptation,
Yes,
the pain.
exactly.
Yeah.
And part of the will, and what this is, I'm not sure that I agree with this statement for the record, so I just want to preface that with this. There are some commentators, I'd have to look up the exact names, but I studied it this past week, that mention it was the will of Jesus, the man, that asked, "Can this cup pass me?" in the garden. But that's where you see angels come and minister to him. There's some would say that, but ultimately the will of God is the one that prevails in all of that. I'm not sure that I agree with that, because I think it was still, I think it's still a fair statement to say that it was Christ, the God-man, who is God dwelt among men, who experienced the full weight of what he understood the full weight of what he was about to experience on the cross. And as that human form, but still fully divine, cries out to the Father, saying, "Is there another way? Is there something else that can be done?" Because the reason I make that claim is because Jesus specifically says, "Not my will,
Right.
but yours,"
Yeah.
right? And I don't know that as humans we would ever come up with such a statement on our own. Not my will, but yours. I think we are. I don't mean this to sound so negative, but I think we are selfish enough that we would never seek out someone else's will to our own detriment, to our own harm. In that case, I think that was the will of the Father still manifesting itself. Manifesting itself in the will of Christ that we see there.
And now we could, to some degree, do it because of Christ in us.
Exactly. Bingo.
Yeah.
Yep. To that extent.
Now
the progressives, the progressive may have gotten it right that he's an example that we follow because of who Christ is. But again, he was so much more than that. That's a big point. So I'm not sure that I'm answering your question completely, but it's the only way to make it make sense is to let it be as the mystery that it remains.
Yeah.
That it is in some capacity both full divinity of God and full humanity of Jesus came together in one. The man Jesus here.
There's aspects of God. I was talking to Zach last night. He's one of our ushers. Yeah. And he's a student at CBU. He's doing a theological degree.
Really sharp guy.
But so we were talking some of these things, and but the idea that God is known, but we also don't fully know him. He gives, so there's but if we could know God fully, then he wouldn't be God.
Correct.
Like if we could just put him in a box and it'd totally explain it away. But he also gives us enough, though, that we could have confidence in who he is.
Enough
he
to
reveals
trust
his
in
character.
him.
Yeah, enough to trust in him. He reveals his character. He reveals the plan as far as we need to know it. He's proven himself through Jesus Christ in many ways. And so we know enough to trust that he's God, but we also can't fully comprehend it with our...
I don't know that even if God were to reveal to us everything, our minds could comprehend it.
Right. Yeah. He's too big for us.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Back the second part of the question, though, is what are some important aspects or maybe some of your favorite pieces of both that bring you comfort knowing of Jesus as human that you can relate to and then Jesus as God?
Well, with Jesus, the human side of him, I would side entirely with, I believe it's the writer of Hebrews who says he sympathizes entirely with us. He understands everything that we go through. In life, we go through really difficult circumstances, and it is the most comforting thing to understand that Christ knows what that feels like. That it's nothing that we all want to say, again, in a very selfish way, we all want to say, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't understand the pain I'm feeling. And that may be true. I may be able to say that to you about certain things and vice versa, but I'll never be able to say that to Christ. You don't know what I'm feeling. You don't know what I'm going through. Yes, he does. entirely. He does that. He felt everything. He came as a human. He felt that. He felt hunger, exhaustion, probably concern, maybe a little bit of doubt every now and then. I don't know if this person's going to do that. I don't know if this is going to go the way that I was hoping it would go. And who knows? You know, we don't.
Yeah.
But
Temptation.
we know that he felt all the things that we do, including temptation. Yeah. No doubt he knows what it's like to lose a parent. Right. He very much likely lost Joseph throughout his life. And to see your mother grieving you when you're on the cross, you know, and to feel betrayed, to all these things, he experienced all that. So he knows it. He understands it completely. That's probably the one I would go for with Christ. The second question was?
And as God.
As God. Oh,
just well, the comforting
the fact that to that I would say the fact that he has the power to do something about it entirely. It's whatever it is I bring to him, he has the power to address it.
Yes.
And if he's not going to address it the way I want, he has the power to comfort me in that time.
That's good.
I would,
I would probably echo definitely the first part. I would echo that with you, that he relates fully to us.
Yeah.
And then just thinking about God, Jesus as God, he knows all, he has the power to do all, to echo your point there. And so whatever I'm facing, who better to bring it to than the one who is able? And if he has, and then if he doesn't do it according to the way I think it should be done, then I trust in his knowledge and his wisdom and 100%. His infinite love. It's like, okay, if he's going to allow me to continue to go through this thing, then there's probably a purpose in it. He could see the full picture. He knows my future. He knows how however he responds, he knows the impact that has, not just for me, but every single person I'm connected to.
Yeah.
And so
that's comforting.
Yeah. It's like, all right, I like leaving it in his hands. That's kind of encouraging. So the next, your next point was that the Jesus of progressive Christianity is not the Jesus of the Bible, because our Jesus is over creation. And you clarified that when the Bible says Jesus is the firstborn over creation, it's speaking about his rank.
Correct.
And it's not talking about he was actually the first born, that he's a created being. It's talking about his rank. He's the first over it. And he was there before creation. And you shared with us John 1:1 and other scriptures. He was there before creation. And now he is the first. I like how you phrase this. He's now the first over the new and the redeemed creation. So because of his resurrection from the grave, he made a path for us.
Right.
You said that we should view all things through the lens of Christ, and which I would agree with. I wanted to see if you could give us some examples of what that means. So we're putting on Jesus glasses in a sense. What does it mean to view things through the lens of Christ? And I actually broke it down to some categories.
Okay.
So I wanted to see if you could maybe give an example. I have 5 different things here. How do we view something like, think math and science through the lens of Christ?
I guess I would probably say the detailed side of what God did. There's a precision to it. Creation wasn't haphazard. It wasn't just throw it all together and make it happen. It's when we break things. There's a quote that Dane used to use years ago. I don't remember who it was, but he would talk about this guy who ultimately became an apologist for the faith because he said he studied the human eye.
Oh yeah, how complex it is.
Just study the human eye. And he goes, and you will be forced to recognize that there is a creator. He goes, nothing like this can happen by accident. There's just no way. So
it's more detailed than any supercomputer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Its abilities, and that's one piece of our body.
Correct. That's one element, I think. Yeah. And I know you asked me about math and what did you say?
Just math and science.
Okay, I think the point is that math is how we have developed this idea of math based off of what God has created.
Laws and systems.
And so we think that math now becomes the greater thing, but it's like, no, we developed this off of what God created.
Yes.
You think of, what's the name of that formula? It's a math formula where the numbers incrementally go up. It's 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so there's a name for it. It's a formula of math that the first two, the two preceding numbers make the next number.
Oh, okay.
And it's a sequence. The point is that sequence Fibonacci?
I don't know.
Damien, can you look that up? Fibonacci.
So 1 + 1 = 2. 2
2
+
plus 1 equals 3. 3 plus 2 is yeah. So
okay.
that sequence is what you see that sequence all throughout creation. When you look at like a shell and you like a seashell,
okay. I kind of know what you're
you
getting
split it like incrementally. It increases every single time by that same frequency.
It's not exponents or whatever, but
I don't know. Yeah. Well, but exponentially yes, it does. It increases to that extent. So we think we've developed a formula to figure it out, but it's like, no, all we've done is see how God is greater than that still.
And as you're talking about, it just makes me think of it's another thing as we are in awe by just how perfect it is, how precise his creation is. There's a worship.
Correct.
Like I worship in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I hear about how the distance of stars and how massive they are and biology, all these different pieces, they point to the glory of the Creator.
Everything does. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
What about something like politics? How do you view that through the lens of Christ?
I think excuse me. Again, I think there's a structured order to the way our societies work. There is a quote unquote politic in the Bible. There's a politics that we follow. I think it's fair to say it wasn't God's original plan, at least from my perspective, because when we see that in Samuel, where the people ask for a king.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, it's not you they've rejected, it's me. He's telling Samuel, it's not you that they've rejected, it's me. And he tries to warn them against it. If you want a king, if you want this established government, if you want to look like the rest of the people around you, which is what they said, here's what you have to look forward to. And they said, yeah, we know it. We want a king. And he said, okay. But then later on, we see that God says he would bless that. So I think it's, for us as humans, maybe it's something that we crave. We need a sense of order, a sense of structure, a hierarchy, whatever that might be. But I think it still shows, ultimately, we know that God is our king. We know that God is our savior, that he is at the highest. If there is any structure, you can call it whatever kind of political government you want, anything. It doesn't matter. We know that God will always be at the top, no matter what. And the good thing about God versus our own structure of government is that he is just. Yeah. He is not corrupt. Yeah. He is not trying to walk both sides here. This is what justice looks like. Through him, we're given a glimpse of what our governments, our structures, our hierarchies should look like. It's unfortunate that we can't seem to make that happen, though,
sure.
Well,
I think also through the lens of Christ, as we look at the politics of our government, we should also see the shortcomings.
Absolutely.
Of even something, if it say something's on more of the right side of an issue, it still doesn't resolve fully because Christ isn't.
Right.
Christ hasn't transformed hearts. We could put laws up to stop certain things or to allow certain things. Right. But we could see through the lens of Christ, unless there's a transformed heart, they give their life to Christ and he works in them, that it's not fully getting to the issue or to the ends of what's broken.
Yeah.
There's a spider hanging down in the ceiling right now. Thank you. Producer Damien's handling it for us.
He got it. Good job.
Okay, a few more here. Sorry. So what about relationships through the lens of Christ?
I think he shows us what true love looks like. I think he shows us what true sacrifice looks like. I think he shows us what true commitment looks like.
Integrity.
Everything.
Selflessness. Work.
Ethics. How to be honest. Yeah. How to be faithful. How to work together, how to, again, relational outside of like a loving relationship. You can still love your coworkers. You can care for their well-being. You can care for them. But
even just Sermon on the Mount, as you're talking about that, it's
how to just
go the extra mile. That's going to work well for you and work. Turn the other cheek and keep moving forward. Even in the last one, just what about things like play, entertainment through the lens of Christ?
I think it's okay to have fun. One of my favorite scenes from the Chosen series was where Jesus goes with the disciples and they go and actually play at the beach. It's just that Jesus, again, we cannot say he is fully Jesus.
What chapter is that in?
Yeah, I know, right? We cannot say but here's the thing though. This is where it would come from. Again, it goes back to the writer of Hebrews, that he understands what we go through.
Yeah.
We can't say that he is fully God and fully man if he didn't experience seasons of joy in his life as well. And I think to a certain extent, I love that in The Chosen, they make him kind of have a sense of humor. He's kind of, because all we ever see and what we tend to pull from Scripture is just the very stoic, very reverent Christ who was, just flipping tables over, and he said love people, but he never cracked a joke. Like he never had fun with people. He never jumped out and scared somebody. He never did. Like we don't know for a fact that those things happen, but if he experienced the full human experience, then he has to have at some point.
You think even children were drawn to him.
Absolutely.
Let the children come to me. It's like they're not going to some just stern old, not a weirdo or some stern old guy. So it's like he probably had a personality that exuded.
I have to believe
and the same Jesus, that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy. So it's someone that enjoys life. And but there's obviously we do things that are going to honor God and glorify him too.
Yeah.
The third point that you had, the final point for this week, was the Jesus of progressive Christianity is not the Jesus of the Bible, because our Jesus is more than a moral example. And it was a good reminder, I think, that you said we would still be in darkness and dead in our sins if Jesus was just a moral example.
Right.
He comes as the sacrificial Lamb of God,
correct,
the God-man who was worthy to take away the sins of the world. But you did spend a little time talking about there is a truth about the moral example that he has.
Right.
That is a component that we look to Jesus, not just as Savior. That's obviously the critical piece of it, but also he does set the example of how then we as the church are to then live.
Correct.
And none of us, though, could live up to Jesus, which is why we need his sacrifice. But there is a call for us to live for him. And you mentioned something that our high school director, Jonathan, shared about.
Yeah.
And he was talking about Philippians 1:21, I believe, when he said, Paul says, to live is Christ, to die is gain. And Paul wrestles with that. It's better by far to be with him. Yes, obviously. We've talked about that in the death series, to be face to face with Jesus when our time comes. That's a glorious day. But to live is Christ, Paul says. And then Jonathan, and then you expanded upon this too, talked about there's things we need to die to today to truly live for Christ. And so my question for you is this something we seek out? Like, because his point was there's always something probably we need to die. You die to one struggle in your life today, and then tomorrow you might have something else. Is this something we need to seek out? Like, should I proactively be looking for, what do I need to die to so that I could live for Christ?
I would. It's a tricky question, because I feel like it's to say that there's something I need to be looking for daily. What do I need to die to today? Would how do I
feel like there's an unhealthy obsession if you could go too far?
There is. That's a great way to word that. It's an unhealthy thing to say, what do I need to die to today? Because while we are sinful creatures, we cannot deny that there is a sanctification process that's happening in us as well. So the hope and the goal, of course, is that we get to the point where we emulate Christ so well. And here's what I would say. If something happens to me where I were to hurt my wife in some way, like I said something really curt with her, or I was with my kids, or I did something, the hope is that I would recognize that as a maturing Christian and say, that's it right there. I still need to die to my tendency of being sharp with my tongue, of being rude with my actions, of being X, Y, and Z. You fill in the blank. So that when those things are made evident to me, that's the stuff. Now, if I'm self-aware enough to be able to identify that, even better. But don't wake up in the morning and say, what do I need to die to today? Like maybe ask the Lord, hey, God, thanks for the continual work you're doing in me. If there's something in me that I'm doing, I pray that you make that evident to me.
Yeah,
something
that's good.
There's a difference there.
Yeah. But what do you have for me today,
right?
Lord?
Yeah. What is it that I need to be working on? Where are show me some areas of weakness that I could be working on. I think those are interchangeable statements.
Sure.
Areas of weakness, things I need to die to. Okay.
And that's really is walking in the Spirit.
Yes, that's exactly
what it
is.
means to walk in the Spirit.
Correct.
Is have a relationship with Jesus.
Right.
So you're you're talking to him, you're considering him
Correct.
throughout the day.
Yes.
You're reading his word so that often is the means that he's going to speak to you.
Exactly.
Or through prayer. You leave some time for meditation. I need to do some reflection on my life.
Yeah.
What's going really well? Are there some areas I can improve upon?
Yeah. I the one thing I would caution on is if it gets to that unhealthy point where you walk around with woe is me, I'm such a horrible person, like this sort of self-mutilating, self-destructive way of thinking, like
because then the joy gets sucked out of your life.
The joy gets sucked out, and
you're trying to live such a rigorous, legalistic life.
Yeah. Well, you may even get to the point where the Lord has done so much work in your life that you think arrogantly, I shouldn't be this way, and you try to destroy that. Right. And it's like, man, you're destroying yourself. Like it's so it all comes with a sense of humility as well.
Yeah. Good. Is there anything like you would recommend for us to have the strength, if there is something we feel like, okay, we need to put some kind of sin in our life to death, and maybe that's an addiction or that's some habit we have, anything you would just encourage for people to have the strength to do that? So let's say I had some addiction, I'm really struggling, and I just I've wanted to, and I've known it's a problem in my life, but I can't break this thing. We talk to a lot of people that are in this
very same issue. Yeah.
Anything you would encourage, like how can someone or do they need to muster up the strength to do it, or is there's something they could do to take that step?
I think the number one thing that we can do, and it's oftentimes it's not the hardest thing to do, it's the thing we don't want to do. Get an accountability partner. Everyone thinks God will hold me accountable. Yeah, he will. And the way he's holding you accountable is by asking you to get an accountability partner.
Right.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
One of the best things that could ever happen to us, people have said this example in one way or another in a variety of ways. One of the best things that could ever happen to us is that we have a billboard over our head that has all of our sins on it.
Oh.
Because at that point, you're just like, you know what?
Right.
I'm everything I've done wrong. I'm going to stop trying to hide this. I'm going to stop trying to bury this. Like, yes, I did this. Yes, I said that. Yet I went there and so forth, right? If we have someone who knows the things we're struggling with, the sins that are in our lives, the tendencies that we tend to fall back into, if we had someone that we were openly and brutally honest with, I think that is one of the greatest things that we can do because they will help keep us accountable. Yeah. And I'm not hiding it anymore. I have brought this into the light. I have exposed it for the light to shine in on this. And I'm asking someone else outside of my own strength. I have a responsibility too. The responsibility does not all fall on the accountability partner. Right. I have a responsibility to grow and develop as well.
Yeah. Be honest with that person.
Correct. In those moments of weakness, that's where your accountability partner comes in, and they help you now. They help you walk through this. We should never be trying to do these things on our own. Some people have the strength and ability to do that. There's no denying that. But the great majority of us don't. And we really need that accountability. And we often say, well, I'll just pray or I'll just do this. But yeah, it's when you're alone that you get those horrible thoughts. It's when you're alone and in that deep, dark recess that you think, I'm just going to give in. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to go there. I'm going to talk to so-and-so. And you fall right back into the same pattern. There needs to be, and it's not, again, there needs to be an accountability partner. It's not that it's hard. It's that we don't want to do it.
Right.
That's what
Any tips you would give? What if someone's asked to be an accountability partner? Maybe they've never done that for someone. Any tips of how do they do it, or
how to be an accountability partner?
Okay. If someone asks
I would strongly recommend, if you've not done it before, maybe talk to someone about that first. Just talk with someone.
That's a good tip.
If you've got someone who has been an accountability partner, or if you know someone like that, or maybe get some resource material on it. Maybe we can look some of that stuff up too. But I would recommend you talk with someone first. If not, if you have been and you're willing to take that on, I think consistency is key. Check in with this person, every Monday. at 9:00.
Yeah.
How are you doing? I'm praying for you. And not just for a follow-up, but just a check-in. Because some people, what they need, the ones who need the accountability partner, what they need sometimes is not just the consistency, but every now and then they're struggling and they're still not going to want to say anything. Kind of nudge them.
Yeah.
Through a text message, a phone call, something.
Right.
I'm here. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just let them know you're there.
Probably digging in a little bit deeper level than just a friend, a casual, hey, how you doing?
I think the consistency,
more ask some specific questions.
Well, that's what I would do for the consistency.
Yeah.
The consistency element. If you're going to check in every Monday at 9, okay, that's the one. Hey, today, remember, we're working on this. I'm praying for you. Here's a Bible verse, something. That's the consistency element. But maybe on a Wednesday or a Thursday, I would just send them a message. Hey, I hope you're having a great day. Just a reminder that you're still there beyond Monday, beyond the consistency element. I would make sure and let them know you're there. Check on, depending on your relationship with them, check on them. Be like, hey, let's go watch a movie. Let's go, whatever that looks like. If it's a married couple, like try a double date, whatever it might be. Anything like that, I think would be helpful because consistency is number one when it comes to being an accountability partner. And just check in on them. I remember I had in fact, he's still around. His name is Pastor Ron, one of my old pastors from my last church. He would say that. He would ask sometimes people that he knew had recently given their life to the Lord. He'd walk right up to you and be like, how's your relationship with Christ going? Immediately. He wouldn't beat around the bush. Ask the question flat. How's your relationship with Christ going? Have you been spending some time in prayer? Have you been reading your Bible? Did you read the Bible today? Right? He had no shame asking. I don't care. He's like, we're talking about eternal ramifications here. And so he would go up and ask specifically for that. Yeah. So in the same way, I would ask, hey, you're dealing with this struggle. How's it going with that? Is there anything I can help you with on that? Yeah. Ask very specific, pointed questions. Don't give the other person the opportunity to escape. Remember, you are their lifeline right now. You are the accountability. You're there to help them. So don't shy away from it. Be prepared. I'd rather be a little overboard than not there enough for the person.
Yeah. So. And probably each relationship's going to be unique. You mentioned it might be once a week, but maybe some people it's like, hey, right, this season I need a daily check-in, or so that kind of gets negotiated with with that pair. Yeah, the person being held accountable, the person giving the accountability.
I served as an accountability partner for someone who has since gone to be with the Lord, but I asked that person, I said, how often do you want me to check in with you? And they were like, never. They're like, I don't want you to check in with me at all. And they told me flat out, I hate being called out. And I said, but the point is you need to be. He's like, I know.
And so this is someone you held accountable.
Yes. Oh, okay, yeah. Gotcha. I was able to.
It was the other way.
Oh, no. I was helping them out. And, but anyways, the point is eventually later that week, he's like, you know what? Let's just do it. I need to be called out. I'm going to hate it, but I need you to do it. Okay. No problem. And that's what I would do. Yeah. And it was a difficult challenge, and it was challenging. They would push back quite a bit. And, but yeah, we were able to work together with all of that. And sometimes that's what it needs. Just ask the question. How often do you want me to check in with you? How intense do you want to be about this? Like, do you want me to flat out call you out? If you do, I will. I'll do that. And be prepared to do that if you need to. But you also need to make sure and take care of yourself as well. As an accountability partner, don't allow yourself to be dragged in. Yes. Don't stumble in with that person. Make sure that you take care of yourself as well.
Good. Yeah. Any final charge this week, thinking about the person of Christ?
Continue to develop your understanding. Don't expect to fully understand it, but continue to develop your understanding of who the person of Christ is. And try, if possible, I don't mean this to sound heretical, but try, if possible, to separate that from the work that he did. Who is he? Why is it important that he is both man and God, fully man and God? Why is it important that he was born of a virgin? Why is it important that Jesus experienced the things that we did? Understand that element, because the more you do that, and this is what we're going to talk about on Sunday, these two, although they are wildly distinct, they are inseparable from one another. Yeah. The person of Christ matters because only Christ could do the work of Christ. And the work of Christ matters because only Christ, the person of Christ, could do this work. So they are inseparable from one another. And it's important that we understand that. So when you start to understand one or the other, you'll start to better understand why now the atoning work of Jesus on the cross matters.
Yep. Awesome.
That's what I would say.
Good. Well, thank you all for listening or watching. If you have questions at any time, as a reminder, we have podcast at centerpointchurch.church is our email. Otherwise, we look forward to hearing from you, seeing you at church, and we hope that you have a great day. God bless.
Bye-bye.